Most people don't understand the gravity of limerence because they mistake it for romantic love. And that misunderstanding is exactly why so many people stay stuck. If you believe limerence is love, you will never experience real love. Because limerence and love are not the same psychological experience, even though they feel similar on the surface. In earlier discussions, I used the word romantic love when describing limerence. That was inaccurate. Love is a grounded emotional state. Limerence is an obsessive mental state. When limerence is not returned, what shows up is anxiety, frustration, jealousy, and compulsive thinking. That alone should tell you something important. Love does not create desperation. Love does not create obsession. Love does not make you anxious about someone's response. Love is calm. Love is stable. Love is not dependent on validation. Limerence demands a response. It demands reassurance. It demands certainty. This is the first critical distinction. In love, you experience the other person as a separate, autonomous human being. In limerence, the other person becomes part of your emotional regulation system. That is why psychology uses the term limerent object, not partner. Not lover, object, because the person is no longer being related to as they are, but as what they represent. Your desires are projected onto them. Their real personality, their availability, their boundaries, their actual behavior all become secondary. What matters most is whether they choose you. And when the choice is uncertain, obsession intensifies. Rejection plays a central role in maintaining limerence. You never get close enough to be fully rejected, but you never get far enough to feel emotionally safe either. This creates a psychological limbo. In that space, separation anxiety grows, hope remains alive, and uncertainty fuels rumination. You avoid real intimacy because intimacy risks rejection. But you avoid distance as well because distance feels like withdrawal. So limerence survives in a carefully maintained emotional distance, close enough to fantasize, far enough to avoid reality. This is not accidental. It is structural. Love is bilateral. It flows into directions. Limerence is unilateral. It flows in one direction and waits to be returned. When you are limerent, you are not primarily concerned with the other person's well-being. You are concerned with how they feel about you. That is not love. That is validation seeking. What you want is not connection. What you want is confirmation. Uncertainty about how the other person feels intensifies limerence. Hope keeps you engaged. Uncertainty keeps you obsessed. Your desire is projected outward, and you begin to interpret reality through confirmation bias. A message becomes a sign. A delay becomes mystery. A neutral interaction becomes meaning. And when someone tells you that the feelings are one-sided, you generate explanations instead of accepting reality. You are not evaluating evidence. You are protecting hope. Projection is the primary defense mechanism in limerence. You see your own feelings reflected back at you, even when they are not there. This is why people in limerence have such difficulty accepting disinterest. It often takes overwhelming evidence for the fantasy to collapse. There are documented cases where two people were mutually limerent for years without ever discovering it. What maintained the limerence was not love, but the balance between hope and uncertainty. Too much certainty, such as clear rejection, and limerence begins to dissolve. Too much reciprocation, and the intensity drops because the chase disappears. Limerence survives best in ambiguity. Mixed signals, in clear availability, inconsistent reinforcement. This tension creates the emotional high. It feels intense because it is unstable. Most people mistake intensity for depth. But intensity is not intimacy. Love does not keep you guessing. Love does not thrive on confusion. Love does not require obsession to exist. Most people do not fall in love. They fall into obsession and call it love. And as long as obsession is mistaken for love, the outcome will always be suffering. Love does not diminish your sense of self. Love does not make your worth conditional. Love does not require you to abandon reality. If you want to recover from limerence, you must stop romanticizing obsession. You must stop confusing longing with connection. You must stop mistaking uncertainty for chemistry. Real love is mutual, real love is grounded, real love is secure. And it begins only after limerence ends. The most important distinction you need to understand is this: love does not demand anything. Limerence does. Love does not require reassurance to exist. Limerence collapses without it. In love, you experience the other person as a separate, autonomous human being. They have their own inner world, their own needs, their own limits. In limerence, that separation slowly disappears. The other person becomes emotionally fused with you. They are no longer experienced as someone else. They become part of your internal emotional system. This is why psychology uses the term limerent object, not partner, not lover object. Because in limerence, the person is not related to as they are, but as what they represent. They represent relief from loneliness. They represent validation. They represent worth. They represent completion. Your desire is projected onto them. Their real personality becomes secondary. Their actual availability becomes irrelevant. Their boundaries are ignored or rationalized away. What matters most is one question: do they choose me? And when that answer isn't clear, your nervous system goes into overdrive. This is why limerence feels urgent. This is why it feels consuming. This is why it feels impossible to let go. Because your emotional stability has been outsourced to another person. Love does not outsource regulation. Love does not outsource self-worth. Limerence does. And that is why, no matter how romantic it feels, it is not love. Rejection is not a side effect of limerence. It is one of the conditions that sustains it. This is where most people misunderstand what is happening. In limerence, you are never positioned in a place where rejection can fully occur. You do not move close enough to receive a clear no. But you also do not move far enough away to allow the attachment to dissolve. Instead, you remain suspended in between. This creates a psychological state of limbo. In that space, several things happen simultaneously. Hope remains alive. Uncertainty remains unresolved. Separation anxiety remains activated, and together, these three elements form the core engine of limerence. You avoid real intimacy because intimacy introduces risk. Real closeness would expose you to the possibility of being seen accurately and rejected clearly. At the same time, you avoid real distance. Distance would require you to tolerate the emotional withdrawal, the grief, and the collapse of fantasy. So instead, a very specific distance is maintained, close enough to imagine a future. Far enough to avoid reality. This distance is not random. It is psychologically strategic. It protects the fantasy while preventing final resolution. This is why limerence can last for years, not because the feelings are deep, but because the structure prevents closure. When rejection is ambiguous, your mind fills in the gaps, and the mind will always choose hope over loss. This is also why limerence intensifies when the other person is inconsistent. Mixed signals are not confusing to limerence. They are ideal. Inconsistency feeds obsession far more effectively than clarity ever could. A clear no is painful, but it is stabilizing. Ambiguity is destabilizing, and destabilization fuels fixation. Your nervous system stays activated because it cannot complete the cycle. There is no resolution, no final answer, no emotional landing. So the mind keeps returning to the same questions. What did that mean? Why did they say that? What if I misread it? What if there's still a chance? This is not intuition. This is rumination. And rumination is not connection. It is a stress response. Over time, this state becomes familiar. The anxiety becomes familiar. The longing becomes familiar. The tension becomes familiar, and familiarity begins to feel like attachment. This is where people get trapped. They confuse emotional activation with emotional importance. They confuse nervous system arousal with emotional depth. But intensity does not equal intimacy. Love does not require constant interpretation. Love does not require decoding. Love does not keep you psychologically suspended. Limerence does. And as long as this structure remains intact, the obsession will continue to feel both urgent and impossible to release. Not because the person is essential, but because the system has no exit.